thanks for joining us for this episode. And I do want to remind you to make sure that you are following us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you may listen to podcasts. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@churchadvance. And you can actually watch video versions of each episode. We'd also really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review and share this content with other pastors and church leaders. We want to help as many of these folks as we can, and so we'd really appreciate you sharing this episode with your friends. Well, thanks again for joining us as we begin today's episode and continue to advance a reformation of fellowship, partnership, and gospel hope amongst Bible-believing pastors and churches. This is Church Advance with Bryan Sams.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Church Advance podcast with Bryan Sams. And I, of course, am your host, Bryan Sams. Welcome back, everybody. And here we are, middle January, and just a great year underway. I always love this time of year. I just feel like getting things in order and getting your church calendar going and getting your people kind of back from vacation and going back at it. Just an exciting time. And I really hope that you've had a great start as we have here at River City Baptist Church. And Luke, man, this is the first time we've been back together since the New Year. So Happy New Year to you. And I'm glad to have you on the episode today. And here we are, January, man. How you doing? Doing well?
It's here. 2024 is here. Did we ever think that would happen? I mean, that's how I feel every year nowadays is, it's 2024.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's good to be back though. Yeah. I took a little break there from the podcast for a few weeks while you just kind of went solo. So other than the intros and outros, I've been kind of missing. So, hey, I'm back.
He's back.
I'm ready. I'm ready to dive into all new content today.
Absolutely.
But hey, we do got to talk a little bit about the conference. The conference coming up. Of course, that was the episode 1 of the new year, was you announcing some really exciting changes. So I think it's a good time for you to kind of remind everybody, about the conference, what's going on, and all of that good stuff.
Absolutely. And of course, you can register here in the show notes and get to getting your tickets. We have a good turnout so far. This is the final Church Advance Conference here at River City Baptist Church. We have changed mainly 2 things, and that's the schedule, first of all. Squeezed it into Thursday and Friday and have the same amount of content. In fact, I think even more sessions than we had before, just squeezed into a tighter window there. And we're excited on Thursday night after the sessions to have Pastor Kurt Skelly joining us. And we're going to have a special night that night. We're having an ordination service. We are going to have some amazing music from River City Worship. And then on Friday, the second big change that's really exciting is we've secured Pastor H.B. Charles Jr. for the entire day. He's going to be teaching on preaching in the morning. He's going to be teaching on pastoring in the afternoon. And then we're going to come together for a worship service with him and with special music guests, the Irwin family. So, man, we've got a lot of really great things coming up at this conference. I know many of you are into the new year. You are making your final decisions on conferences and pulling the trigger. Go ahead and sign up to be with us. We've got plenty of room for you. It's going to be a great time. And I think it's going to be just our best meeting yet, February 8th and 9th, right here at River City Baptist Church in Jacksonville. Come on down to Florida for a little sunshine in the winter. And so, Luke, looking forward to having you here. And we're going to have a great time, man. It's been good the last few years, and I think this one's going to be great too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to being there. And so, for those of you out there, make sure all you got to do is go to Bryan's website, bryansams.com, and it's right there towards the top of the homepage. Register for the conference, and looking forward to seeing you there. And it's going to be a good one. So, well, Bryan, I think it's time for us to dive into this new content.
Yes, sir.
And I think this is a great way. This is a great January episode because, we're kind of in this new year mindset still a little bit. Of course, as soon as February hits, everybody kind of, okay, it's no one cares anymore. But hey, while everybody's still in that mindset of, kind of maybe New Year's resolutions and things, it's also can be a very reflective time where people are looking back. They're kind of thinking about where they've been, and again, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, it's already 2024. And so I think that's kind of where we're headed with this episode, as we're going to look at some of your reflections of 8 years of pastoral ministry.
Yeah. So, last year, I think toward the end of the year, I did some midlife musings, thinking just about life. Here I am, 45 years old as I'm recording this. And then, it also kind of hit me that, it's not like I'm in my first year of pastoring anymore. In fact, just yesterday, I had somebody in my office, and I can't remember what they said, but my response was, yeah, it's been amazing what's happened here in 8 years. And he just looked at me and said, I cannot believe that you have been here for 8 years. And I said, I know, man, it's crazy that we are coming up on the end of my 8th year of being the lead pastor at River City Baptist Church. And man, you start talking about being a pastor in the same location for, nearly a decade, and hopefully God will give me, many more years. It's really interesting to look back. And I think another thing that kind of stirred it, is for some reason the other day, me and Angie were sitting on our couch, and we just started kind of flipping through some of the old YouTube channel. Now, I hate to even mention that because I hate for people to go look it up, but our old church had a YouTube channel, and it was a one-dimensional video. Luke, you'll appreciate this, but it was shot from the kind of the balcony, so it was this kind of broad picture.
Uh-huh.
And man, we were just laughing at the music, and just the look and the way it all started. And of course, so much has happened, so much has changed, and so many things for me have really taken root. And I look at these 8 years, and I think, man, what has shaped me? What have I learned? And so I just, during the course of this reflection, I wrote down 10 values, 10 values that should be our priority in pastoral ministry, church culture, if you will. And so here we go. We are going to get into these 10 reflections from 8 years of pastoral ministry in one location.
All right, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, per usual, we're going to get through as many of them as we can in this episode. But I have a feeling we're gonna be needing to break this up into maybe multiple episodes. But let's get started. The first value that you have here is that of clear vision.
Yeah, and this is really interesting because I wrote this a little bit ago, and yet as we come on to a new year, a lot of churches do like a vision Sunday at the beginning of the year. I did it also my first 2 years, but then I stopped doing it, and I think because the reason I stopped doing it's not because I don't want to share like what's going on and what we're going to do, and all these sort of things. But the real issue was I was afraid that we would lose sight of the clear vision. In other words, yeah, this year our church is about loving your neighbor, and this year our church is about this, and this year, you get these themes. And I think that the vision of the church is really clear, making disciples. And so I think the more you focus on what you're there to do, the clearer everything becomes. And this is why this is important. So our theme, if you will, or I guess you would more call it a slogan for our church is making disciples, being disciples. So we want to ourselves be followers of Jesus, but we also want to bring others along on that journey. That's the clear vision. And the reason that's important, and when I say clear, if that vision for what your church is supposed to be there for should direct, okay, all of your ministry efforts. So I broke those down into 4 categories. When your vision is clear, it will be reflected in 4 areas. It will be reflected in your budget or how you spend your money. It will be reflected in your facilities, how you use your facilities. It'll be reflective in your program, and it'll be reflected in your people. And so, what we're saying about clear vision is if you just keep repeating, clarifying, stating, this is why we're here, as opposed to jumping at so many different things and trying so many different things. Just keep moving forward with this vision of God, really God's vision for the church. I think it really helps you communicate with your church and build out what you're trying to see. And I say this to our church all the time. Let me give you one example of this from vision with facilities and financial resources. I have told our church publicly, and I will continue to repeat publicly the commitment that I've made to our church that we will not get into multi-million-dollar building programs. We're not going to build an auditorium. We're not. Right now, we have a 350 seat auditorium. We have a couple hundred people. We don't need one right now. Maybe God will allow us to grow more. Maybe not. We did send about 15 people to another church plant this year, last year in 2023. I have more of a vision for that, if that makes sense. In other words, I value multiplication over addition. So I'm not just looking to have a big campus with big buildings and this. I'm looking to train people, being disciples, and then making disciples by sending people. It's J.D. Greer said a church should not be measured by its seating capacity, but by its sending capacity.
Yeah.
And I think that's the real vision for making disciples and multiplying disciples. And so then we look at so that's just one example. I'm not going to spend money, millions of dollars. And again, churches do it. I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm just saying for us, we've just clarified that we value missions, church planting, making disciples over bigger and modern buildings that would eat up. In other words, if I could send $1 million to see the gospel preached in Africa, I'd rather do that than spend $1 million on an addition to our auditorium. And yeah, again, no criticism to people that see it other ways, because there's a lot of people in that mode of building buildings and so on. I just am more in the mode of let's plant churches, and that's really sunk into my heart. We did it in 23. We've got another intern in the queue right now and looking to plant again and again. Probably our church, I think, net grew by about 43 or something this year. That's about a 20% increase, which again, that's after sending 15 of our own people to the mission field. And that's, I mean, not the mission field, the church plant. And that's difficult. I mean, the people that want to go do that are not your lazy people that are sitting on the sidelines. These are people who give, they're people who serve, they're people who teach. And praise the Lord that there is a thriving church now that a year ago had 8 people. This past Sunday, in early 24, they had 57 in attendance, and they're really going strong. And so we're thankful for that, but that just comes from vision, and it takes time for that to come. I think it takes time for it to crystallize in your own mind, and I think it certainly takes time for it to seep into the fabric of the congregation as well.
Yeah, and it sounds to me like it's not just a matter of casting the vision one time. It's a matter of constantly reminding your people of this vision, because you use the example of like a vision Sunday, which is a very common thing that, I mean, I work with several churches doing, their media and graphics. And I mean, I will design probably a dozen or more of these New Year's themes for churches as we head into a new year. And there's nothing wrong with it. But I do know that one of the things that even pastors have admitted to me, they're like, yeah, well, we do this Vision Sunday thing. And then by February, March, we kind of forget about the new theme and everything. We got some nice graphics and maybe it's on the bulletin art, cover art or whatever. And so that's just a great example of how the vision, you can have a vision and cast a vision, but if you aren't reminding people of that vision constantly, then it's not going to take root. It's not going to take effect. And it sounds to me, Bryan, like based on these 8 years, the vision that you've constantly been casting and reminding your people of has resulted in the multiplication of those disciples. And so,
Absolutely.
clear
And
vision.
it's extraordinary. And I will say this, my experience with the theme churches, and again, this may not be true of everybody, but what ends up happening is the theme creates a series of topical sermons that are always the same.
Yeah.
So like let's say one year it's be faithful. Well, it's be faithful in our giving, be faithful in our serving, be faithful in our outreach. And then the next year it's courageous. Be courageous in our giving, be courageous in our serving, be courageous in our missions or whatever. Well, it's really the same thing. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's just veneer. And I don't see it being as um, crystal clear that it really captures every year and takes the church in kind of a new direction. I think, in fact, I would think that would be a weakness if annually there is kind of this new thing we're trying to do. I just think stability, clarity is important. And so, yeah, and I think guys that are new pastors, man, just be patient. I know that's one of my next points coming up, but don't try to reinvent the wheel all the time, man. Just settle in and have your plan, God's plan from Scripture for the church, and just beat the drum and just keep marching. And I think
Yes.
that's really what's going to be helpful.
Yeah. So we're going to have that clear vision. And like you said, it's going to be obvious in your priorities. And it's not just going to be something that you say one time. It's going to be something that you're constantly repeating and reiterating. So that's the first of these values as you have these reflections. The second one is to build your team.
Build team, man. Yes, not hire team, build team. That takes time and effort and energy. Most guys are quickly looking to hire team. Now, I've said stuff about hiring. I have a whole episode from I believe last fall on hiring. And we talk about when it's okay to hire. And there are necessary times. I mean, I have a church of 243 members. I mean, there's got to be people around here helping. I've got 50,000 square feet of buildings. There's got to be people pulling the load and helping you accomplish certain things. There's no question about that. That is just the nature of the beast. But I think we are quick to hire that. And worse is hiring it from without with people that you do not truly know, truly trust, and truly have camaraderie with. And so a lot of times churches end up in this cycle of assistance, where there's just new people all the time. And I'm thankful for guys like Aaron Chan that were here for, as my assistant for 7 years. And now I have a secretary and children's worker who's been here for several years working with me, of course. And then there's laymen who have developed into pastoral leaders. Like my youth pastor has been with me 4 years. My senior adult pastor has been with me for 8 years. And I could go on and on and on. But everybody outside of that trend, and I'll talk about how I do that in just a moment, a lot of them kind of came and went for various reasons. There's all kinds of reasons it could be. But the truth is you can't build a team that way. And I get, Luke, man, I get questions all the time. I'm out of the college scene, like I'm not, I mean, I still teach, but I'm not really affiliated with like placements and stuff. When I was at West Coast, you could have called me and said, Hey, Bryan, I'm looking for a student pastor. Do you know a guy? And I'd have 15 guys, hey man, this guy's getting ready to graduate. This guy, he just called me. He's great. I don't do that anymore, but I still regularly get emails and text messages from guys that say, hey, do you know of a guy looking to be a youth pastor? And I'm going, man, I really wish you could look around you and say, who is the faithful guy in your church who is always there, loves teenagers, loves to serve the Lord? And I know not everybody has that, but that's what you should be doing first. And that's what I would say. Slowly build a team around you and then prioritize lay leadership. And Dean and Sarah, pastors here in Florida, Tallahassee, Florida, and he made a statement in one of his books. I would not hire somebody who did not already go to church here at this church. I think it's called the City Church. The point was they're already bought in. They already love the church. They're already there. They're coming because they love the church, not because they're working at the church. And I think we all know that for some people, ministry becomes a career rather than a calling. And these, frankly, guys will go to Bible college and that's what they think. I remember guys would take jobs. Several guys, Luke would come to my office and say, "Hey, I've got this job opportunity to work at the church. What do you think?" And I'd look at him and say, "Is that what you want to do?
Yeah.
Are you supposed to be a third grade science teacher?
Mm-hmm.
I've got this job opportunity. Well, do you want a job or do you want a ministry?"
Yeah.
And so I found that there are people in my church that are fully engaged. And the best example I give you is my student pastor, Pastor Andy. Man, he's been here. He's been faithful. Great marriage, loves people, feels a call to ministry. He was, and he's a little older. He just was a natural fit for student ministry. He's doing a great job. And I feel like he was built rather than hired, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me tease out one more statement here about this whole thing, and that is when you prioritize lay leadership, you will be in a training mode, a development mode, and also you will be able to have people around you that have built-in loyalty and commitment. And I think that goes a long way. And here we have me. I'm paid. I have two ladies that are on staff. I have Luke helping me with graphics and social media.
Thanks for the
And
shout out.
absolutely. And you guys should hire him. I mean, for everything that you need. And then, of course, I have an intern, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But everybody else, children's ministry, youth ministry, our band, our ladies ministry leaders, all those people are lay leaders. They are in the congregation, serving the congregation, and they're doing it as volunteers. And for most of them, that's what they want. For instance, my student pastor, he knows he's at a stage in life where it would be beneficial for him to keep his job and still serve our students. We don't have 150 students. And my question for a youth pastor, with there's only 30 kids, what do you do all day? And here's a guy who's got a great job, great benefits. His family has a good situation. And he, rather than take a $30,000 pay cut to work as an assistant at a church, he can do it and still serve well. And it just works out beautifully. I think there's a lot of good reasons for that, on top of the fact that we are supposed to be building the saints to do the work of the ministry. So I think that's the bottom line. So prioritize lay leadership. And then one other thought, and that's this: utilize internships. I have an intern right now. And the nice thing about internships is this: you bring them on for shorter spans, and it gives you the opportunity to have easy exit ramps. It also gives you the flexibility to develop somebody and let them morph into their role. And it gives you an easy person to bring on your staff if you so choose to. But I think when you have a built-in exit ramp and an intern status, allows people to serve, but it also allows you to not be fully committed in the sense of this might just not be a good fit. So I'm not going to make you my student pastor, but you're a pastoral intern and you're going to get to work with students or some other role. And I think it's a better model for hiring people on a church team.
Yeah. And, this is really there. We talked about these episodes. I think it was last spring or early summer where we had the episodes about hiring in particular. And so, you can go back and look those up if you want, more about the hiring side of it. But I like how your emphasis here is about building a team, not hiring a team. Because there is this mindset out there that I think it's predominant amongst independent Baptists, but I'm sure it exists in other denominations too. You just go hire the positions that you need. I need a youth pastor. That's always kind of the number one hire that you hear about. People's like, I need a youth and music guy. The combo. And that's and not to say that wouldn't work still. And there may be situations where that's relevant, but I like your emphasis on building the people around you. And how it's, because like you said, talking about that pastor in Tallahassee and how he made that statement, how he wouldn't hire someone who wasn't already at his church, because like you said, there's just organic buy-in there. People are just, they're passionate about their church. Clearly they've been going to church there and involved in the church, so they must love it. I think this is a great point to emphasize is that when you say build a team, you're not saying hire a team. And I think, Bryan, I mean, we've talked about this before. I think there's probably sometime down the road, as we're mapping out content for this year, it might be good to revisit some of these this idea of hiring and how that looks, and in terms of what roles can be, like you mentioned, not to continue to harp on how great I might be, because I'm not, but I mean, I don't live there. I'm in
Right.
Nashville. You're in Jacksonville, but we found a way where my position and what I do is something I can do remotely. It doesn't require me to be there, and so really, all that to say, there's this outside of the box mentality that I think a lot of churches need to adapt to, that you don't have to just go hire a paid position for every little thing that you think needs to be done around your church. There's volunteer forces. There's other means of even outsourcing some of the other maybe more administrative work or whatever it may be. And so I'm sure there's a lot more there. Well, we are coming up on the end of this episode, but I am going to just go ahead and let us touch on this third reflection here, because I think it's a great transition from the second one. And we may tease this, and then maybe finish it in the next episode. But Bryan, why don't you go ahead and give us kind of a little introduction to this third reflection, which is the idea of valuing people.
Yeah, man. I'll just give you this quick statement. We'll sign off here. And that is this: you have two choices in ministry. You will use people to build your church, or you will use your church to build people. It's that simple. And that was not always my mentality because of my background and my training. And I'm thankful that I was able to divorce myself from that way of thinking. Now I think, how can I value? How can I equip? How can I help? What can I do for you? And the more you do that, the better things turn out for you.
Yeah. Well, we'll kind of pick it up there in the next episode. And also want to give one last reminder out there: make sure that you do get registered for Church Advance. That is coming up here in just a few weeks by the time we release this episode. So once again, head over to bryansams.com to get registered there. Well, Bryan, I'll let you give the last word, and we'll sign off for this episode.
Yeah, man. Hey guys, sure. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all the great feedback, and just keep sharing it. If you think it's helpful, we'd love to connect with you. And y'all got my information. If I can help you in any other way, please reach out. God bless you. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode, and we really would appreciate it if you could leave us that 5-star review, and then of course share this content with your friends. We want to help as many pastors and church leaders as we can, and be sure to, of course, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you may listen to podcasts. And go ahead and subscribe to the Church Advance YouTube channel at youtube.com/@churchadvance. This podcast is hosted by Bryan Sams. It is co-hosted and produced by myself, Luke Clayton, and the team at mustincrease.com. If you want to connect with Bryan, be sure to head over to his website at bryansams.com. Well, we really look forward to seeing you again in the next episode as we continue to advance a reformation of fellowship, partnership, and gospel hope amongst Bible-believing pastors and churches right here on Church Advance with Bryan Sams.